During today's webinar, we will review the very important topics surrounding the fire code and compliance with the FDNY. First, our experts will provide background on New York City's World of Fire code requirements. Next, we will dive into a typical fire alarm approval process and also review the latest changes that have taken place at the FDNY and discuss proposed upcoming changes that may be coming down the pipe. We will ultimately wrap up the webinar with a Q&A session, so please type any of your burning fire code questions into the chat at the bottom of the screen and we'll get right to them. There may even be some time at the end for some hot tips, so be sure to stick around. To provide some background for those who may not be familiar with our organization, Milrose Consultants is a leading national provider of building code and zoning analysis, permit fulfillment, and municipal compliance solutions. In 2019, we embarked on a mission to better serve our clients by forming strategic partnerships that enabled us to broaden our lines of services and capabilities across an expanded national footprint. Today, Milrose family of companies now consists of 10 premier companies, including our strategic partner, Howard L. Zimmerman Architects and Engineers. Also included in the family of companies, we have welcomed Permit Advisors, Master Plan, McCormick Compliance Consulting, SF Codes, Integrated Group, SIS, and our two newest additions, JM Zoning and Project Expeditors Consulting Corp. Through our new partnerships, we have been able to significantly expand our portfolio of fire protection services, and we are thrilled to now be able to offer holistic end-to-end fire protection solutions to our clients. Starting with FDNY application submissions, along with fire code variances, engineering applications, FDNY document research and dismissals, project authorization letters, and finally, FDNY TCO affidavit testing. Now, please let me introduce you to our panel of experts. Starting with a legend with over 20 years of experience, John Colatrella. He is the Executive Director, MEP, and Forensic Engineering at HLZAE. Next, we have Jeremy Falca with 14 years of experience with the FDNY. He serves as our Fire Code Services Manager right here at Milrose. And with that, let me hand the microphone over to our first panelist, John Colatrella. John, take it away.
Thank you, Brian. Hi, everyone. So on this first slide, I want to take everyone through some definitions and just some basics around some fire protection systems that we all hear about and we all talk about. Just want to start off by saying at the heart of every fire protection system, it's all about getting occupants of a building out safely, whether that's a fire alarm system that's been set off, that's alerting people to a fire or smoke condition, or a sprinkler system that has been discharged to contain a fire while the FDNY is en route. So starting with a fire alarm system, I mean, this is a system that we all know about that alerts building occupants to a fire and smoke hazard in the building. They're typically all connected to the FDNY directly, so that when a fire alarm goes off, the FDNY is immediately being dispatched to come to the building as people are starting to egress the building. A fire alarm system can be triggered by a smoke condition, a heat condition, or a water flow condition. A lot of people don't know about the water flow condition, so that if a sprinkler head is discharged, water flow is now in the system and the fire alarm is set off, dispatching the FDNY. Additionally, there are tamper switches on valves. If a valve is inadvertently closed to cut off water flow, that will also set off the fire alarm system, dispatching the FDNY. Fire suppression, typically a sprinkler system, falls under your fire suppression items. And this is a system that is heat-based, detects a fire based on elevated temperatures, and attempts to extinguish that fire or at least contain the fire while the FDNY is en route. From the engineering side, the design criteria, which many don't know, is 30 minutes of sprinkler coverage in the most remote zone. This is giving that critical window to the FDNY to get to the building within 30 minutes before that sprinkler system is per se out of water, depending on what it's connected to. Switching over to standpipes. Standpipes a little bit different. There are combination sprinkler and standpipe systems, but a true standpipe system provides access points for water to the FDNY, typically run up and down the egress stairs of a building, and it allows hoses to be connected. Many people are very familiar with the old hose racks that are in the stairwells at each floor. The FDNY no longer ever uses any hoses at a building. They always carry their own hoses and they use their own hoses. From the engineering side, depending on the type of building that you own or operate, there could be an actual way to file for getting rid of those hose racks and just having a central cabinet downstairs. So it's just important to think about if the maintenance and the expense of keeping all the hose racks is just getting too much. As with many systems, fire alarm and fire suppression systems all must be designed and installed per FDNY requirements, and they also require all routine testing and maintenance mandated by the FDNY as well. Next. So switching gears, this is an auxiliary radio communication system. In the world of New York City buildings, this is certainly a newer addition over the last decade plus. What this essentially is a wireless two-way communication system for the FDNY use only, not for any building operators, that allows the fire department to more seamlessly communicate without any radio interruptions throughout the building. They had problems previously, certainly in high-rise buildings, utilizing their radios that they carry and getting disruption within the building, whether it's from fire-rated walls or just generally the mass of the building that would prevent good use of their radios, reliable use of their radios. So in all newly constructed high-rise buildings, and existing buildings that have gone through or are going through a major renovation, an ARC system most likely will be required. Part of the ARC system to get it prior to installation is the design of it, installation, acceptance tested, and operated and maintained. If your building is going to require an ARC system, whether it's a new building, an NB permit, or just a major renovation, a licensed design professional is going to need to be required to evaluate the code requirement, design the system, submit the plans to FDNY. Like with everything else, design professionals are going to need to comply with all applicable codes from both the FDNY and the Department of Buildings as needed. Next. So next we have the smoke purge system. So this is a post-fire smoke purge system that we're going to talk about. Again, historically in New York City, this is a relatively new addition. When I say relatively, last 10, 15 years, this was introduced and required. So any of the older residential commercial buildings are not going to have one. So really one thing very important to talk about is this is a post-fire smoke purge system. What this system is not designed in any way to help fight the fire, but more to evacuate all of the smoke from the building after the fire has been extinguished. So it really gets classified a little bit differently because it's not actually actively trying to extinguish a fire, but actually resume the building to normal use after the fire has been extinguished by the FDNY or the automatic sprinkler system. New York City Building Code lists 4 cases where these systems are going to be mandatory. Certainly high-rise buildings that are subject to Section 403 in the New York City Building Code. Buildings with any floor area more than 50,000 square feet, buildings with spaces located at least 100 feet away from natural ventilation, which are defined by the operable windows and doors with at least 5% of total area, or if you happen to have a building or a space that has high pile or rack storage with combustible materials, this also may be required. Certainly for any new major building, high-rise building, this is going to be part of the design. But very, very important to note, our office does quite a bit of existing building retrofits. And going along with that, we have a particular situation where we were retrofitting a fire alarm system in an occupied residential building. As part of doing that, one of the stipulations for this building owner fell in with doing a post-fire smoke purge system on, a 100-plus-year-old building. So just something to keep in mind. It doesn't always just have to be on a new building. Certainly a major existing building, high-rise existing building going through a major alteration, likely going to have to install one of these ventilation systems as well. Again, regardless of the building type or occupancy, if a smoke purge system is going to be installed, it must exhaust the air outside the building in a safe area and in accordance with the New York City Mechanical Code. Post-fire smoke purge system must be serviced regularly to ensure proper operation. And if there's an unknown question about, is this going to be required? Am I doing, a major alteration that's going to require this? The best case is to speak with your licensed professional so that the code research can be done and that you know ahead of time that this has to be built in to the overall project budget. So emergency generators, why is this being classified under, a fire protection type of seminar? They really go hand in hand. As building codes changes and requirements increase, there are certain stipulations to have generators in buildings. Certainly new high-rise buildings are going to have generators as mandated by the code, and many of the fire protection systems are actually going to need to be connected to the emergency or standby generator. So let's start off with emergency generator versus a standby generator. What is the real difference? The best way to explain this is an emergency generator is fit for a facility like a hospital. That's the best example and the easiest one to think about. With a hospital, if the power goes out, there's actually a life-threatening issues that can happen in terms of patients that are in critical condition if the power goes out. So for a hospital, for this example, would get an emergency power system. And the difference between an emergency power system and a standby power system, putting aside what needs to be connected, is the amount of time that it takes that generator to basically transfer the loads. An emergency generator, a truly classified emergency generator, has to transfer all electrical loads within 10 seconds of the power going out from Con Edison. Standby generator, different, has to transfer the loads within 60 seconds. So it's quite a bit of difference from the equipment to the design. So most buildings that we work on, Milrose works on, and that you likely own or manage on this seminar likely would have standby power systems. So for a high-rise building, a major building, it's going to get a standby. It's going to be mandated to have a standby power system, standby generator. And there's going to be requirements to connect to that standby power system by the FDNY and by the DOB. These are going to include at minimum emergency lights, the fire alarm, and an elevator serving all floors of the building. So if you have a high-rise major building and you fall under the category of requiring a generator, those systems and possibly some others at minimum are going to have to be connected. The most important thing to take away from this slide is that if you have a building that is an older building, doesn't require a standby generator, and the building owner or operator wants to elect to put a generator in, as soon as you go into that category, especially in New York City, there's going to be a minimum few things that are going to have to be connected in addition to the nice things that everyone wants: convenience outlets, possibly domestic water pumps, and other things that make the building comfortable in a power outage. So again, even if electing to install a standby power system, you're going to have to connect emergency lighting, fire alarm, and an elevator to serve all floors at minimum. Next. So at this point, it concludes the engineering part of the discussion. And I'm going to hand it over to Jeremy now to go through some of the FDNY changes and requirements.
Thank you, John. As Brian mentioned, my name is Jeremy Falica. I'm the Fire Code Services Manager here at Milrose. I'm just going to take everybody through a typical fire alarm approval process. So, what we do here at Milrose is, our goal is to get these applications approved as quickly and as smoothly as possible with the fire department. Time is always of the essence, so our job is to get these done to keep things on schedule. So one way we do that is by reviewing all of the applications that we get from our clients. And we review them as if we're the fire department. So we're going to provide comments back to our clients saying, you need to fix this, fix that, change these documents, etc., just so that we minimize the review time that the fire department is going to have. Once everything is ready to be submitted, we submit it to the fire department through their portal. And that is going to take about 2 to 4 weeks of review time for the fire department, in which they will either send back an approval or they'll send back a letter of deficiency. At that time, we will address those comments with the clients or If it's internal, something that we can fix ourselves, we will do that, and we'll resubmit to them until it is approved. And that process can take, again, 2, 4, maybe 6 weeks. So knowing that ahead of time is really helpful for the ownership. The next step, which is, as you can see, is a new process that the fire department is implementing, is called a project authorization letter. And that essentially acts as your new work permit. Previously, the approved package from the fire department is your work permit. Now, they want to make it similar to how the DOB runs their process. And this is a very quick turnaround. It's only about a day, but you need to gather that information from your electrical contractors and fire alarm vendors in order to submit it for issuance. And once that is approved, we can take that document along with the previously mentioned fire alarm approved package, and we can finally request for an inspection. Without that document, you can no longer get your inspection request approved. You must have it before scheduling inspection with the fire department. So the inspection and scheduling process now. So we submit our documents along with some other electrical contractor documents to the fire department and request our inspection date. And our job really there is to get it as soon or as exact to when our clients need them. So if it's as soon as possible, or if it's on weekends, or if it's 6 months from now, our job is to get as close to that as possible. Next slide. So once we have that inspection date in hand, we always highly recommend that we do a pre-test of that approved application. So our job is really to go into the site beforehand, generally 2, 3, 4 weeks, and we do a functionality test of those approved drawings to make sure that when the fire department gets there, there's no funny business. They're not going to be surprised. Everything's going to run smoothly or as smooth as possible. Fire department's always going to find something, but we want to minimize it so that they're not walking away with violations. The way we do that is beforehand, we're kind of manage the process with all of the contractors and the owners and the engineers so that everybody's ready at the time of inspection. Everyone who's supposed to be there is there, and all the documents are there. And us as Milrose will be doing the pre-testing and attending the inspection so that everything runs smoothly. Now, once the inspection has occurred, there's a lot of different ways things can go. You can receive a letter of approval, which would be great, or you can get a notice of defect in which we can work with, which I'm going to get into in the next slide. But the ultimate goal is to get the letter of approval, and that is the end-all be-all for fire alarm applications. There's no signing off of applications the way it's done at the DOB. This is the end and final approval of the application. Next slide. So next, what I want to talk about is the recent changes, and some of you may be aware of them, some of you may not be aware. They were introduced in May of this year. Some of them are being implicated already, and some are still being worked on and they're in the pipeline. But they generally deal with professional certification and self-certification of fire alarm applications and inspections. Now, the fire department has never in its history done professional certification for design, let alone for inspections. They have done self-certifications, which is our second bullet point, but they have never done professional certification. They are introducing this. What they're doing right now is they're issuing certificate of fitness, and that is allowing for professional engineers and design applicants to obtain the certificate of fitness. That way they can soon submit for professional certification of their applications. So it's very important, and it's a big step for the fire department to do this. It'll cut down review times drastically, and it'll put them in the same breath as how the DOB does their professional certification. This is not an option yet. Again, we're not able to do this as of today, but it's in the works. So keep an eye out for it. And once we know that it's going to be implemented, we're going to let the industry know that. The next bullet point talks about self-certification, and now this is available as of today. So once an inspection has occurred, if there are physical items that need to be fixed, or if there's paperwork items that need to be fixed, we are now allowed to self-certify those. And it depends on the scope of the application, but there are items that the fire department will allow self-certification. And this can be done depending on the type of defects. It's either the electrical contractor or your fire alarm vendor. but we've been very successful with submitting these and getting approval. So this has been a real help and benefit instead of having to continuously have the fire department come back to the building. Once they're done, they're done. So this is really improved scheduling and time for the buildings. Now, the last bullet point is really just a combination of these two. It's from beginning to end, allowing fire alarm applications to be professionally certified and then self-certified. So from beginning to end, there will be no fire department review and there'll be no fire department inspection. Everything will be self-certified, which is unprecedented in the fire department's history. They've never really done this before. So again, this is still getting rolled out. It's in effect, but it hasn't really been rolled out just yet, but it's coming soon. So be on the lookout. Next, please. So here we have the proposed changes that are coming 2024, and the fire department has just sent out a simple memo. They're going to be implementing a rule for local law 33 and 34, which deals with safety of rigs for filming and production locations. They're also going to be introducing a creation of a non-curable violation. It's just an additional category within the violation category itself. Next, please. More importantly, really dealing with fire alarm is going to be a change in the ARCS review. So right now, if maybe you were aware or not, the ARCS review is pretty comprehensive. There's a whole plan review, and then there's a testing review of all of the equipment and radio signaling. They're hoping to streamline this a lot more. There was a lot of duplicate information that was being needed and a lot of documentation that had to be provided. So the fire department's really looking to, with this change, streamline that process. And next and last is the fire and emergency action plans. So currently the fire department is still implementing the 2008 code documentation for these two fire safety plans and emergency action plans. Now with the upcoming rule in 2024, they're really going to start enforcing the 2022 New York City fire codes for these two items. And they're essentially changing it from the way it was before in 2008. So it's been a long time since then to finally implement this level 1 and level 2 fire safety plans. And these codes have been out for a while, but they're not being implemented. So this rule is going to officially put them into use. Next slide. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Right. Yes.
Nicely done, sir. All right, so now we've got some time for for a Q&A session. Let's see here. First question of the day. This is going to you, Jeremy, so stay warm. If my fire alarm job was filed with the DOB, am I required to obtain a project authorization letter?
No, actually. So any job that was filed with the DOB, so it has a DOB job number, is not responsible for a project authorization letter. If you, however, have done, let's say it was filed originally at the DOB 5 years ago, but it was never closed out, and now you're trying to do an amendment to that application, if you submit an amendment to it, then yes, now it'll be required. But if it's strictly with the DOB, it has a DOB number, it's not required. It's a good question.
Fantastic. All right. This next question looks like it's directed to you, John. I have to add sprinklers to an area of my building that previously did not have sprinklers. There are already sprinklers in certain parts of the building feed from a combination roof tank. Can I just file to add the additional sprinklers? Can my existing tank accommodate the additional sprinkler heads?
Thanks, Brian. Certainly a good question. This is really where the engineering team comes in. Looking at the combination tank, looking at the available water is most important, because when adding sprinklers to a building in an area where there aren't already sprinklers, that most remote zone has to be determined, and the amount of water to feed that most remote zone for a period of typically 30 minutes has to be established. And that 30-minute coverage with the amount of heads in the most remote zone will then dictate the number of additional gallons that will be needed in that combination tank. Many times the combination tank will have the ample capacity if it's a small area looking to provide additional sprinklers. However, when we've evaluated these systems in the past, certainly for existing buildings, existing sprinkler system, just looking to add to it, there's many times an opportunity to actually look at the connection point of the domestic takeoff of that tank. Because if that, in essence, can be raised, what you're doing is you're providing additional gallons of dedicated fire reserve capacity. So a simple adjustment to the tank in terms of moving the domestic water takeoff tap up by 6 inches or 1 foot based on the diameter of the tank, you could easily net yourself that additional reserve capacity without having to put a larger tank in, a supplemental tank in, and feed this new sprinklered area in the building that wasn't previously sprinklered.
Fantastic. Thank you, John. I've got, let's see, one more for you here, John.
Sure.
This question reads, I manage an existing building that has a laundry room. My laundry equipment vendor is telling me I need to add sprinklers to be code compliant. Can I just have my plumber file for the limited number of heads that I need over the gas dryers?
Sure. So thank you. Honestly, this is work that our office has been really involved in over the last several years. There have been a lot of adjustments needed to existing building laundry rooms, whether that's sprinklers, mechanical, or plumbing. The first and foremost thing that has to be said, especially through the eyes of the Department of Buildings, is that existing laundry room within the building on the building's certificate of occupancy. That is really a hard and fast rule. There's a lot of articles about it. The DOB's plan examination department and even quality assurance department, that is the first thing that they're checking for. So honestly, it really doesn't matter from an engineering standpoint or a plumbing standpoint, whether we're looking to design and file a new limited sprinkler system for a laundry room that has gas dryers that previously didn't have them, or if it's a small enough job that a licensed master plumber or a licensed fire suppression contractor could file an LAA for. The first thing that's going to be checked by the LAA division or by plan examination in the Department of Buildings, is that space a legal space? Meaning, is it on the C of O or was it previously filed for? That's the first step. Honestly, the sprinkler component of it for laundry rooms usually is pretty straightforward. If it's not on the C of O, potentially a building could be looking at an alteration type 1 filing, which can be a very painful and certainly expensive endeavor.
Very interesting. Jeremy, got one more for you. Who is responsible for submitting self-certifications with FDNY for a notice of defect? And let's see, a follow-up question to that. How long does it take before a letter of approval is issued?
Okay, so there's 2 types of self-certification. One is for, I'll just call it the paperwork side. So just simple documents that have to be updated. And that's usually done by a filing rep like myself or other companies like Milrose. So we would be the ones who would submit those. We can also submit the technical defect self-certification as well, or that can be done by the electrical contractor or engineer. Now, once those are submitted and accepted, which it could take about 3 to 5 days for acceptance, that they've received it and reviewed it, the actual letter of approval can take anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks. Or if you haven't, there's an additional fee, you can do an expedited review, which is 5 to 10 business days, which most, if not all of the clients will do once they're aware of. So think of it from the day you submit it to the day you actually receive the letter of approval, between 2 and 3 weeks, if you go the expedited route.
Nice. All right, Jeremy, I think you can help us out with these. So there's a couple ARCS questions. You down for these?
We'll see. Let's go.
All right, let's see here. All right, for ARC systems, people have heard it's typically best for the electrical contractor to file the same drawings with FDNY for the most seamless approval process. Is this true? And do you have further comments?
The electrical contractor to submit them?
That's correct.
The design has to come from an engineer or architect. So the design drawings have to come from them. The actual commissioning report is done by the installers, and that's the best process. They're the ones who prepare all of those documents, and we still have to submit them through the portal, but you have to have your engineered drawings.
Yep.
And then your electrical contractors or installers of the system will do the actual commissioning report. So there's two submissions, but I guess the answer is both yes. Design engineers and the electrical team.
And one more to follow up on ARCs. What's the average review time for an ARC system?
So I guess the reason they created this rule to streamline this, the plan review is the same as a fire alarm, but the commissioning can take months and months, because you have to remember they're reviewing every single audio file for an entire building. So it's hundreds and hundreds of audio files. So I think, what's that, Brian?
Yeah, plus or minus 6 months.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So I think that's where the fire department is trying to change with this new rule. Maybe they're going to eliminate that part. I don't know, but I imagine that's the complaint, is that it's taking so long to get the commissioning reports approved.
Wow. All right, John, I've got, looks to be the most popular question of the year. What do NYC building owners need to know about the new laws regulating lithium-ion batteries and storage?
So, thank you for that one. It's certainly a hot topic these days. Speaking from firsthand experience, unfortunately, a number of our clients actually have had pretty legitimate fires in their existing buildings due to lithium-ion battery explosions, whether that was from an e-bike, an e-scooter, or something similar. So it was a very hot topic. I've reviewed them, I've investigated them personally, and we've actually been in kind of design concept for some of our clients that are interested in having legitimate e-bike, e-scooter, e-vehicle, storage rooms within an existing building, and actually taking them out of, say, a residential apartment, meaning that, you cannot store or charge these batteries in those locations. And they've been looking to, what does it take to relocate that to a new or a bifurcated existing bike room, say, in the building, if it has one. So there's a lot of talk about it. There's certainly going to have to be discussions and filing efforts with the FDNY and DOB for this. But some of the high level things to talk about for it is, certainly it's going to need to be a fire rated room, without a doubt. That's a hard and fast rule. There's going to have to be fire protection within the room. And there's actually going to have to be a substantial amount of ventilation within the room for the space. So most bike rooms within buildings, if it's a residential, even a high-end residential building that has bike storage for almost every resident in the building, they're certainly likely not going to have the ventilation requirements, may not have the sprinklers, could have a fire rating requirement. But depending on how many of these are going to be stored in there, the fire rating of the particular room may not be high enough. And a standard 2-hour room may not be high enough given the amount that are going to be stored. Another popular thing to note that our clients have considered is actually having these rated storage boxes for the batteries. Maybe some people have seen them around the city. They're fire rated storage boxes. Certain batteries can go in them. They can be charged within the boxes. Not saying that these are explosion proof boxes, but they certainly limit the fire damage and the explosion damage if a battery were to explode. So overall, it really does need to be reviewed on a bit of a case-by-case basis, but some of those are really the highlights in terms of what it would take to possibly have a dedicated room for these batteries going forward.
Yeah, there's definitely still some decisions to be made, right, John? So it's kind of just, let's just dive into it and see what we can figure out.
A feasibility study or an investigation of what you're actually looking to achieve, where in the building, and the amount of them is really the most important first step.
There you go. Jeremy, last question of the day. I believe this is for you. Now that the FDNY is implementing a pro cert filing process, who would be responsible for that self-cert filing?
The professional certification, as far as I understand, is still from a design professional. That's either your engineers and your architects. There's potential for it to be the contractors and vendors. I have to look at the certificate of fitness for that. But I think from beginning to end, from the design and the self-certification can all be done by the design professional.
Yeah. And again, it's still pretty early on. They need to kind of get
It is.
ducks in a row.
The self-certification is being used today between the vendors, electricians, and the expediters, but we haven't seen anything from the professional certification side. It's still in the works. So, good question. Yeah.
Right. Well, that about does it for today. Just in closing, we just wanted to close with some of these some important tips for successful FDNY compliance. First, obviously, is to plan ahead. Always expect the worst when it comes to FDNY compliance timelines. Allow your consultants, such as Milrose, to engage early to deliver the most up-to-date timelines and to really create the most successful path for you. Number two, avoid shortcuts. On all significant jobs, we all know that one missed detail can derail the project execution. So pay attention to details as always and avoid those shortcuts. Even though they're tempting, they generally never work out in the end. Next, less is more when it comes to vendors. Hire professionals, contractors who are well-versed in fire alarm installation. This is important because there are certain consultants that can carry out more than one service on a project. Keep Milrose in mind for that. Keep the list of project stakeholders as simple as possible. This will allow for the most streamlined communication possible for a successful project. And when hiring contractors, please engage and make sure that they're the most top level. It is absolutely crucial. And lastly, bring in a team to support the professionals with the same extensive knowledge of fire code and FDNY compliance. This team will ultimately speak the same language as the FDNY, which will allow for ultimate transparency and again, ultimate communication. So thank you all for joining us for this valuable content. As promised, please look out for an email from us with a recording of this webinar. If you're interested in utilizing any of our fire protection services that we spoke of today, or if you have any questions regarding today's webinar, you can reach out to myself or both of my panelists, John and Jeremy. The three of us are extremely eager to do our part in alleviating the pressures that come with the high complex projects. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us, as our contact information is listed here on the last page of the presentation. Thank you again to everybody for their participation, and hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their week, and we'll talk soon.